Wow, stories.
Am I the idiot for refusing to change my last name and causing a rift before my wedding? A while ago, my fiancé and I discussed how we would go about me changing my last name once we get married. He really wants me to have his last name, as it is the traditional thing to do. And he wants us as a family to share the same name, which I understand. My entire life, I've always known I don't want to change my name because I love my name, my family's history, and it feels like a big part of myself and who I am. It's taken a long time for me to accept who I am, and my last name feels like a part of me I don't want to change. As a middle ground, we decided I would hyphenate my last name. He will not change his last name because he thinks socially it looks weird, and he's all about keeping with the norm. If it weren't for the social aspect, he would have done it. It's getting closer to our wedding now, and I still wish I could just keep my last name rather than change it, but I will for him. I'm in medical school becoming a doctor, and being called Doctor, my last name, has been a dream of mine. My last name is also unique and distinguishes me from other doctors. He has a very common last name. I know if I hyphenate, I can still be called Doctor, my last name, but I do wish I could just keep my last name by itself. Should I just accept this and accept the middle ground decision we made, even if I end up not liking it in the future? To add, I think a lot of comments are seeing him negatively out of proportion because of this one thing. He's had to make compromises for me throughout our relationship as well. For example, I can't travel much in medical school and we live in different cities. Almost every weekend he'd drive down to see me. I don't know where I'm going to match into residency, and he's going to follow me wherever I go. He didn't care to have a big wedding, but is doing so because I wanted to. He's moving in with me after the wedding, even though it probably would have been better for him to stay at his current job. He's not religious, but I am, and he is very respectful of my religion's traditions. He's always been very accommodating and understanding of my school situation, and is extremely supportive. We have a great relationship for over 5.5 years, and this last name situation is really the first fundamental difference we have had, which is why this situation has me confused. I've always told myself growing up I'd never want to change my name, but I also love him very much, and he's been nothing but kind to me, so wouldn't want to hurt him either. About the kids situation. When we talked about me hyphenating my name, I said it was perfectly fine for the kids, if we have any, to take his last name. And if I hyphenated, he isn't going to hyphenate his. About his desires. I'm not 100% sure if there's more reasoning behind why he wants me to take his name so badly. The social norms thing was a big topic in our conversation, but he seemed a bit sad and hurt about the idea of us not having the same name. So I believe it stems in us joining as one under marriage. The last few times we discussed this, it got a bit heated, I think, because we were both strong in our beliefs, but I definitely need to talk to him more about it. About if this is a deal breaker. I know for a fact that this is not a deal breaker, as he mentioned. It wasn't when we were deciding if I hyphenate my name. When I said yes to hyphenating my name, I did so for his sake because I felt bad. But deep down, I know I would prefer to keep my name. If I stuck to my ground, he would look the other way and try to get over it. I just feel bad for making him feel that way, and I'm unsure if he'd hold any resentment about using his last name socially. I am completely fine with people calling me his last name socially and around family, with me keeping my name legally. I believe I brought this up when we spoke about it, at least 4 or 5 months ago, but he didn't think it solved anything. I believe he wants it legally changed to be officially under one family name. Follow-up Q. We're getting married really soon and going on our honeymoon immediately after. He's been stressed with the planning and his family, and I don't want to make it worse and ruin our enjoyment. Should I tell him my concerns now before the wedding, or wait after everything's died down? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. If you are in medical school and plan to be a doctor, either change your name before you start your residency, or don't change your name at all. Honestly, do you know what a pain in the butt changing your name is? Don't do it if you don't want to. It really is becoming more common for women to keep their maiden names, especially if they have already established a career with that name. Even more so with a professional degree. Comment 2. Don't unalive your dream. Your instinct is telling you that you won't be happy with this decision long term. And it's not a compromise if you're the only one doing the compromising. You should not be getting married if you can't come to a happy resolution to this. And that means for both of you. You are taking on all the burden of changing your name while he gets his traditional thing with none of the sacrifice. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me through this. So, 2 weeks ago, I decided to bring up my concerns about the last name situation with my fiancé. I thought it was better to address it before the wedding rather than let it fester. We were sitting on the couch and I just blurted it out. I told him that I was still struggling with the idea of hyphenating my last name and that I really wanted to keep my name as it is. He looked at me for a long moment and I could see the hurt in his eyes. He didn't say anything at first, which made me even more nervous. After what felt like an eternity, he finally spoke. He said he understood where I was coming from, but that it was important to him for us to share a family name. He mentioned that he had been thinking about it a lot too, and that he felt like we were at an impasse. He asked me if I was willing to compromise in any other way, but I couldn't think of anything that would make both of us happy. The next few days were tense. We tried to go about our normal routines, but there was this underlying tension that neither of us could ignore. I could tell he was upset, and I felt guilty for bringing it up so close to the wedding. But I also knew that I couldn't go through with something that didn't feel right to me. One evening, we had a particularly heated argument. He accused me of not caring about our future together and said that if I couldn't make this one compromise, maybe we weren't meant to be. That hit me hard. I started to question everything. Was I being selfish? Was I putting my own desires above our relationship? But then I remembered all the sacrifices I had made for him too. And I realized that this wasn't just about a name. It was about my identity and my sense of self. In the middle of all this, I got a call from my mom. She could tell something was wrong and asked me what was going on. I broke down and told her everything. She listened patiently, then said something that really stuck with me. She said, "You have to be true to yourself. If you compromise on something this important, you'll end up resenting him, and that's not fair to either of you." That conversation gave me the courage to have one final talk with my fiancé. I told him that I loved him more than anything, but I couldn't go through with changing my name. I explained that it wasn't just about tradition or social norms for me. It was about my identity and my dreams. I told him that I was willing to find another way to show our unity, but I couldn't give up my name. He was quiet for a long time, and I could see the wheels turning in his head. Finally, he said that he needed some time to think. He packed a bag and went to stay with a friend for a few days. Those were some of the longest days of my life. I kept replaying our conversations in my head, wondering if I'd made the right choice. While he was gone, I had a lot of time to reflect on our relationship. I thought about all the good times we had shared and all the challenges we had overcome together. I realized that this was just another challenge, and if we could get through this, we could get through anything. But I also knew that I couldn't back down on something that was so important to me. When he finally came back, he looked exhausted. He sat me down and said that he had done a lot of thinking. He told me that he still wanted us to share a family name, but he understood that it wasn't fair to ask me to give up something that was so important to me. He suggested that we both hyphenate our names as a way to show our unity while still respecting each other's identities. I was surprised by his suggestion, but also relieved. It felt like a true compromise, one that we could both live with. We talked about it some more and decided that this was the best solution for us. It wasn't the traditional route, but it felt right for us. The fallout from this decision was mixed. His family was a bit taken aback when we told them, but they eventually came around. My family was supportive, as always. The wedding went off without a hitch, and our honeymoon was amazing. We both felt a sense of relief, knowing that we had navigated this challenge together. Looking back, I realized that this whole situation had brought us closer. It forced us to really communicate and understand each other's perspectives. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. We learned that our relationship is strong enough to withstand even the toughest challenges. As for the backstory, I think it's important to mention that my fiancé comes from a very traditional family. His parents have been married for over 30 years, and they both took their family names very seriously. I think a lot of his initial resistance came from wanting to honor that tradition. On the other hand, my family has always been more progressive. My parents encouraged me to be independent and to value my own identity. I think that's why this issue was so important to me. In the end, we found a way to honor both of our backgrounds while still staying true to ourselves.